Welcome to this edition of the Weekly Dose. Challenge your perspective. This is Patrick Dare in Washington, D.C. I am beginning to believe that as Africans, we have a unique DNA that predisposes us to bad leadership. How else do you explain that country after country and leader after leader, even those that come in with the greatest promise, will end up dictators, will end up leaders with policies that have no interest to the people of their country? That they end up that with every progressive year of their leadership, that freedom of the people is diminished. Take, for instance, and I could name quite a few, Zimbabwe. When Robert Mugabe came in, it was not just independence for Zimbabweans. This new country, Zimbabwe, former Rhodesia, was hope for the rest of Africa. Those jubilation. I remember as a young man in Kenya being so moved by what Robert Mugabe stood for. Freedom for another African country. In fact, to let you in on a secret, the way I shaved my beard was influenced by what I saw. I wanted just to be like him. In Kenya, after independence, and I wasn't there, but from the stories, we know that the country was one. Those that fought for independence, one of the conditions for accepting independence was that Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was released. But what happened? We ended up with a one-party state, detention without trial, the fear of the common man to even mention his name in bad taste. In fact, treason could be labeled on you for thinking about bad things. And then comes Moi. A whole generation was born and knew Kenya to only have one president. 24 years of an iron fist rule. Opposition detained. Mysterious murders. Some parts of the country totally marginalized. Uganda. 1986, when Museveni comes into power, the savior of this pearl of Africa. From the brutal dictatorship of the former presidents, Idi Amin, Milton Obote. He was going to bring a new Uganda. We know the story. 26 some years after, the opposition being run out of town, election period after election period, the constitution changed so that he can win the election. Now, currently in Kenya, with a new constitution, the whole country was hoping for a new beginning. We saw the peak of the Kenyan people united when President Kibaki came in. And then what? The next election, violence. Because of this very same thing, so much hope that quickly just dissipates. Now we know that in Kenya the last election was contentious. But the people of Kenya waited for the constitution to work. It worked. Whether you want to agree with the results or not, it did. But what happened last week should not happen again. The change of the constitution was a new direction. The people demanded change in how they're governed. They wanted more freedom of space, freedom of expression, and for the police to break out brutally the peaceful march. That should not happen. And Mr. President, the people that you've put there to make decisions on your behalf are not doing you a favor. Knowing what we know, that half the country doubts your mandate. This kind of action goes to cement what their thought is. The two principals are facing the ICC, we all know that, for crimes against humanity. By police being brutal to peacefully marching people puts a stamp, a check mark on what people's perception already are. That this government will do whatever it takes to protect itself. And that the Constitution is just a paper. These people are not good for the country. And they're not good for you either, Mr. President and Mr. Deputy President. They're looking out for themselves and invoking that they're protecting the government. They're not. As I said, this leadership is not just at the helm. It's at the entire systems of government throughout Africa. And Mr. President, you should not allow this in your administration. You recently disclosed that there's corruption right in your office. Well, the people are waiting for your action. That you must put your foot down, not on just corruption, starting with your office, and then throughout the system. But you also must stamp out the people that you've given the power to act on your behalf, not to make decisions that take this country backwards, like forcefully breaking up a peaceful march, a peaceful demonstration, because the Constitution allows them to. These people, they're not interested in your legacy. And I think your legacy should be different from the legacy of your father. It should be different from the legacy of President Moi. Give Kenya a fresh start, that the Constitution meant to give. That is my perspective. What's yours? This is Patrick Dea in Washington, D.C. Thank you.